Gentlemen, welcome to the new season of The Quest, and let me just say I am proud of you. I'm proud of you for being here. Somewhere along the way, you saw some advertisement or you listened to an invitation to a buddy, and you thought, you know what, I need that. I need to keep growing as a man. I need to be a better dad, a better lover, a better employee or employer. I need resources to keep growing as a man. I need insights. I need helps. I need encouragements. Maybe some of you just need some good friendships. And you're taking a courageous step to be here, part of a journey we're calling The Quest, winning at work and home. And we're going to discover how you can win in both of these arenas, in both of them. Our goal is to upgrade your manhood this year. When we were talking about how we're going to market this, my idea was to have t-shirts that just simply said Manhood 2.0, upgrade yours. No one really wanted to do that, though. I was really disappointed. But we hope to upgrade your manhood this year. And I promise to lead the way. I promise to give you my best. I will be here for every session. I hope you'll join me. I promise to provide the resources and encouragement you will need to accomplish this goal of winning at work and home. Just take a look around you for a minute, all right? Look to your left, look at your right. There are all kinds of men in this room today, all right? There are corporate guys. There are country guys. There are men who are just starting out in a career. There are some men who can see retirement just around the corner. There are some blue-collar guys. There are some white-collar guys. There are some guys who have no collars. Some guys are single. Some are single again. Some are married. Some are remarried. Some hope to be married. Some have kids. Some don't have kids. Some are kids. Some are expecting kids. We've got boomers and busters and Gen Xers and mosaics, all kinds of categories of men. But every man is welcome here in this room, all right? Having turned 50 a couple of years ago, I've entered a whole new category of manhood. You know what it's called? It's called old. And some of you will soon be joining me in that category. And so I've got a little quiz just to see which side of the line you fall on in this category called old, all right? Number one, describe your family's first TV set. Was it A, a Sony? Or B, a huge wooden cabinet with two big knobs and a tiny screen featuring a black and white picture that you rarely saw because your dad was always standing in front of it, adjusting the rabbit ear antennas and cursing. Number two, who was featured on your first lunchbox? Was it A, Davy Crockett, or B, Vanilla Ice? Number three, do you remember Howdy Doody? A, of course I remember Howdy. B, you're making that name up, aren't you? Number four, who was the first living U.S. president that you were aware of? Was it A, Dwight D. Eisenhower, or B, Vanilla Ice? Number five, do you remember when boss was a popular slang term denoting approval, as in Dwayne got a boss GTO? Is your answer, sure I do, or B, that's pathetic? And finally, number six, where were you the first time you heard of the Beatles? Was it A, in a station wagon? Or B, who were the Beatles? Now, guys, listen very carefully. If you don't know who the Beatles were, leave now. Just leave right now, all right? Now, regardless of what category you find yourself in, here's what I want you to know, all right? We're here to talk about two mirrors that every man looks into to feel like a man. In the fairy tale of Snow White, the wicked witch would look in her mirror every day, and she'd say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror would suddenly come into focus, and it would speak back, and it would say, Snow White. And the witch would go into a rage every day. And eventually that witch, because of her rage, fell into some destructive behaviors. Now, that fairy tale, gentlemen, carries a lot of truth. It carries truth for us as men, because every man, every day, looks in one of two mirrors, or both. Two mirrors that size him up as a man. Two mirrors that give him a sense of whether he's being a success or whether he's stumbling in life and not feeling good about himself as a man. And those two mirrors are the mirror of work and the mirror of home. And what he sees in those two mirrors help him feel good about himself or feel like he's failing. Now, we look into the mirror, and if the reflection is positive, we have a sense of satisfaction. There's a spring in our step. We walk through the day and we think, you know, I'm doing pretty good as a man. But on the other hand, if the mirror is negative, then we feel a deep sense of loss about ourselves, and we feel pain. And if you feel pain long enough, listen, if you feel it long enough, just like the witch in the fairy tale, it's easy to go into a rage or fall into a destructive behavior pattern or use cheap thrills just to kind of numb the pain because the mirror is not giving you the answer that you wanted to hear. Now, the bottom line for us as men is this. We're all performance-driven, okay? It's in our DNA to perform well. Now, that doesn't mean perform perfectly, but to perform well. And for any man to really feel good about his life, he needs to see more wins than losses when he looks in the mirrors of his work and his home. Now, my hope this year, through our journey together, is that I can help you experience more wins. So when we look in these two mirrors and we ask the question, am I doing any good at all? We find the mirror smiling back and saying, you know what? You're doing a lot better. You're doing good. So let me give you a brief orientation of this season of the Quest. Look in your workbook. Take a look at your outline. I'll give you a heads up on what to expect. There are 4 things you need to know to succeed in our journey together. The first one is this. Number 1, you will need to go the distance with me to get the most out of this material. Winning at Work and Home is 16 sessions long, 15 after today. 1/3 of the sessions will deal with your relationship with a woman, okay? For some of you, it will be with a girlfriend or someone you're engaged to. For most of us, it will be with our wives. Now, you know, if you don't have a woman in your life at all in regards to a girlfriend or a wife or someone you're engaged to, I want you to think, guys, you do have women in your life, all right? You work with them or you live around them or you got, you know, sisters or relatives who are women. And so, you know, you will learn about those relationships and how we deal with those relationships. That's the first third. 1/3 will revolve around specific things in the home, like how we deal with money, how we deal with our children. And the final third of the sessions will deal with the workplace. And we're going to look at some new perspectives on work and how to interact with those around you at work. And for you to get the most out of this year, you need to go the distance with me, all right? All 16 sessions. Number 2, you will need to be in a small group, okay? The most productive time during our time together are the breakouts and the small groups. This is where you're going to get to interact and process the material with some other men, and you're going to get to personalize it and customize it. Some of you came in here as a small group, okay? And I just want to say, well done. That's great, man. Congratulations. Your group is set. You'll know exactly what to do after I'm done talking. Others of you are not in a group, but after the session, we're going to help you get into one, all right? Let us help you do that. Small groups are extremely important. Number 3, you will need to keep up. You need to keep up because every session builds on the previous one. And if you have to miss one because of a business trip, or, you know, maybe because you're sick or some other lame excuse like that, then the sessions will be online so you can catch up. Okay, now we're going to do this to help you, but don't become dependent on them. Don't become dependent on them. Make it a priority to be here. The online sessions are just a backup for you, okay? And we'll tell you about those in the weeks to come. Lastly, you will need to apply yourself for maximum impact. Scattered over the 16 sessions, I'm going to give you some application projects to help you apply the material in some immediate ways. And that way you can experience some wins with the material even before we finish it. Nothing motivates men like results. And if I can get you to taste some of those little wins, then I believe it'll give you the courage to go for some of the bigger ones. Now, next week, you'll get your first application project. Now, those are the things you'll need to succeed with me over the course of the year. Also, I want to give you some disclaimers to kind of put you at ease. Number 1, there are no prerequisites for this year of the Quest. No prerequisites. There are 3 parts to our Authentic Manhood curriculum, but they all stand alone. So there is nothing that you needed to do as a prerequisite to this year. All right, we're all starting at the same place together. Secondly, there is no pressure here. We're not going to put anyone on the spot. We're not going to ask you to do anything that's going to embarrass you. Guys, this really is a safe place. I hope you can feel it tonight, but I believe you will in the weeks to come. Thirdly, there is no offering that is going to be taken. Somebody say amen to that, all right? No offering, all right? We will not ask in this room for contributions to this church. Fourthly, there is no church solicitation, all right? Your name is not going to go on some follow-up list for somebody to call you and talk to you about our church, all right? There are men from other churches here. Guys, welcome. Every guy's welcome, all right? We're not going to try to get you to join this church. Some of you now may just be kicking the tires on church, all right? And so you are our welcome guest. But having said that, it's still important for you to settle into a small group for our breakouts. And so we're going to help you do that and try to help you be accountable for that. But we're not going to pressure you or solicit you to join our church. Number 5, the last thing is this. There's no being beat down in here. We're not here to beat you down, all right? We're here to really set you up for success. We're going to talk about some pretty weighty subjects, all right? We're going to talk about your wife, your girlfriend, your work, or your children. And sometimes we feel almost burdened by them. These are weighty issues, but I promise in talking about them to be as positive as I can. My goal is not to beat you down. My goal is to lift you up. And it's to make life lighter for you and to make these worlds of work and home more exciting to you, more of an adventure. Now, along the way, we're going to have a lot of fun. Pulitzer Prize-winning humorist Dave Barry says that most men don't have just 2 mirrors. He believes there's a third one. And here's what he says. He says, yeah, it's work and it's home, but it's also sports. He said, when a guy gets married, he might say that it is for richer or poorer or until death do them part. But he knows somewhere in the deep recesses of his brain, usually about 3/4 of an inch deep for most guys, that something could come up to make him change his mind, possibly even during the reception. Work is just as fragile, whereas the bond that he forms with his sports team is absolutely permanent. You may feel there is something twisted about the values of a guy who can be more committed to a bunch of transient athletes, none of whom he really knows and none of whom that care about him, than he is to his own wife or to his employer. But you have to consider the larger picture from the guy's point of view. For instance, his wife may be a warm, loving, and loyal person, but there is no way that she'll ever make the playoffs. Not even if she works out and bulks up during the off season. Whereas there's always a chance that if a guy remains faithful, his team eventually will not only make the playoffs, but may even win a championship. Every guy secretly believes this. The team can succeed only if he really cares about it and really devotes himself exclusively to it, night and day. Even if this means he must put it on the same level as his family or his career or even the threat of global warming. And if he does this, he can make a difference. He can be a part of a winning effort. He can contribute in every way that athletes do, except in those ways that actually involve doing something athletic. Now, that's true, isn't it? Sometimes our commitment to our sports team is like a permanent bond. We're more passionate about that. But we want to make that same kind of passion true of work and home, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. All right? So here's my goal for all of us. Write this down. My goal is this: to liberate us to live better. To liberate us to live better. I believe there are all kinds of chains that hold men back at work and home. One is the chain of wrong assumptions that guys have about life. And those wrong assumptions cause them to have the same unhealthy results. But they never challenge their assumptions, so they stay chained to it and keep getting the same results. There's also the chain called lack of understanding. They just don't know any better. They're clueless. Listen to this, guys. What you don't know really can hurt you. What you don't know really can hurt you. And one of the things we want to do is bring some new, fresh understanding about work and home. There's the chain called pride. There's the chain called social blindness. You know, there are a lot of guys 60 and 70 years old who all their lives have assumed that everybody needs to think the way they do. That's what's wrong in the world. Everybody just think the way they do. That'd fix the world. And they never understand that people are different, and they have to learn to interact with people based on those differences. There's a chain of spiritual blindness, and that holds some men back because they never tap into some incredible spiritual resources that are there to help them lift them up at work and home. Now, what I want to do this year is to free us from those chains so we can feel better and we can be better. Our goal is to liberate us to live better. Now, I think it'd be helpful if we just kind of take a sidebar for a moment and show you how this year's journey called Winning at Work and Home fits into the big picture of the men's fraternity curriculum, all right? There's a diagram in your outline. Take a look at it. And there are three parts, all right? The first is the quest for authentic manhood. The second is this one called Winning at Work and Home. And the third one is the Great Adventure. Now, the focus of the quest for authentic manhood is a man's core identity. A man's core identity. What is it that makes a man a man? All right, we spend 24 sessions covering that. As I've already told you, Winning at Work and Home is 16 sessions, and the focus of it is on a man's chief responsibilities. Who he is at work, who he is at home. And finally, the Great Adventure is 20 sessions, and it's over a man's chosen destiny, his chosen destiny. The chief elements in the quest for authentic manhood is a man's wounds, all right? What happened when he was growing up that affects his life now? And we talked about an unpacked suitcase that guys carry around with them that drags them down because they're not willing to take a look at their past. We look at what it means to be a man. We give a definition of manhood, and we give an overview of primary manhood issues. In Winning at Work and Home, we're going to be talking about how a man successfully relates to a woman and how he rightly engages his work. In the Great Adventure, the chief elements are rediscovering the adventure in life. Because somewhere along the way, some guys lose that sense of adventure. It just becomes drudgery. And to do that, we focus on helping him to understand his unique design and develop a satisfying, long-term life focus. Now, those are the elements. Let's look at the passion of each, all right? The passion of the quest for authentic manhood is seizing your manhood. Seizing your manhood. The passion of Winning at Work and Home is establishing your manhood. And the passion of the Great Adventure is maximizing your manhood. Maximizing your manhood. Now, that's the big picture, okay? Now, the reason I did that is because if you go through this year with us and you get to the end and you say, man, that really helped me. I wish there was more. Well, there is. There's a whole lot more, okay? And so we're going to have enough to offer you, to give you tools to improve your life and in every area. Now, I want to give you five promises that I believe I can deliver on before year's end. And these are for every man who goes the distance and sticks with me, all right? Here they are. Number one, you will gain some new insights and understandings about yourself, your wife, or your girlfriend, your children, and your work. They have the potential to significantly improve the quality of your life. I have learned that life really turns on a few significant insights. And if a man will embrace those, his life can be different. Some of you can upgrade your life at work and at home with just one insight. And by embracing it, you will upgrade your manhood by 50%. Insights are what make life satisfying. Napoleon said this. He said, armies don't rule over men. Ideas rule. And a good insight is worth its weight in gold. Second promise is this. You will make new friendships, and deepen old ones through your small group. Now, as men, we have a lot of acquaintances. We got a lot of buddies, but a lot of time we just talk about superficial things, you know. Well, this experience can help us go deeper. In talking about more substantive things, it will strengthen your relationships. And for some of you, just getting in a small group, you're going to form some lifelong friendships. Number three, promise number three. You will receive a lifetime game plan for raising healthy sons and daughters. A lifetime game plan. In session 9, you will get a year-to-year strategy that a dad can follow for giving his son or daughter some emotional, some spiritual, and some directional help so that when they leave home, you can feel confident because you know you have delivered into their life strategic fathering. Number 4, I promise that you will have the opportunity to craft 10 key moves. 10 key moves for becoming more competent and satisfied with your life, both at work and at home. And you'll be able to apply them after our time is over. If you look at the back of this session's outline, you have a draft. Over the course of this year, this is what's going to happen, okay, guys? If you pay attention, over the course of this year, a light will turn on for you. And there will be some new awareness, some new learning, something, just a light goes off. And you'll think, man, I could really improve my life if I did that with my child, or that with my wife, or with myself at work. And when you have one of those moments, whether it's in this teaching session or in your small groups, I want you to write it down and just keep a record of those thoughts. For example, you might say, I need to begin to give my son some real manhood instruction, and maybe have a special ceremony for him as he's getting ready to graduate. Or you may see how important it is to honor your wife. So a light goes off and you say, I'm going to plan a romantic getaway. And it's going to be an unforgettable memory maker. And you can honor her for what she's meant to you. Those are things to write down in your draft over the course of the year. Now watch this. As we get toward the end, you may have 15, 20, or 25 of those kind of insights. But I'm going to ask you to pick your top 10. Top 10 moves, key moves that you can make. When we get to the last session, in our last session, I'm going to ask you to make a copy of that finished sheet and give it to me. And at the end of the quest, this season of the quest, we will have a ceremony for those guys that I just simply call the finishers, the guys who stuck to it, the finishers. Now here's the last promise, all right? I promise that you will understand life's paradox principle and have opportunities to practice it. In fact, guys, I'm going to deliver on that one tonight. I'm going to give you this one today, the paradox principle. So are you ready? All right, here we go. Let's dig in. What is the paradox principle? I want to be sure that everybody hears this point. What is the paradox principle? I believe it is the ultimate success principle. The ultimate success principle. I think this principle is the most important thing that you'll hear me say all year. Most important thing. And I want to introduce it to you today so you can carry it with you throughout the year. It is the thing that makes successful men successful. It is the paradox principle. Now, what do I mean by paradox? Well, Webster's definition of a paradox is this. Webster says it is a seemingly absurd but possibly true statement. That's a paradox principle. It is seemingly absurd. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why, listen, that's why a lot of men just throw it away. They discard it. It doesn't make sense. But it is a possibly true statement. And successful men find the truth of it in life. There's no greater or more powerful symbol of the paradox principle than this one. It's the cross. The cross. And why is that, okay? It's because the cross makes a seemingly absurd but possibly true statement to those who confess Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. The cross is a death symbol, isn't it? It is a symbol of an excruciating execution. It means the end of my life, that I die. However, today, in the 21st century, when we see crosses on someone's neck, I've got one on this ring I wear, or in churches, you don't think of it as death, not if you're a Christian. You think of it as making a promise of new life. Now, that's absurd. Death brings life. It's a paradox, isn't it? A seemingly absurd but possibly true statement that millions of Christians around the world confess. And the paradox principle makes much the same claim and even incorporates the cross as part of its claim. I want to use this symbol of the cross to explain the paradox principle to you. There are 4 elements in it, and each element asks a question, and each question has a best answer. Okay, look on your diagram. We're going to start on the right. We're going to go clockwise, all right? Here are the 4 elements of the paradox principle. Number 1, awareness. Going clockwise. Number 2, vision. Number 3, strategy. And number 4, execution. Now, it all starts with awareness. Awareness. It asks a critical question of a man as he enters any arena of life. Now, maybe you're a young guy here and you're in a serious relationship with a young woman. And for the first time in this relationship, maybe the first time in your life, you're thinking about this lifelong bond. Or maybe you're a young businessman and you just got a promotion and now you're in a brand new, entirely different environment. New rules, new relationships. Or maybe you're an older man and you just lost your job. Or maybe you're at the stage of life where in a year, the last child in your house is going to drive away and you're going to find yourself in an empty nest. And the only significant other is your life partner, your wife. Now look, in every new arena of life, every new stage of life that a man enters into, there is a hard question that is asked. And it is an awareness question. Here's the question. Do I get it? Do I get it? Do I get what dating is about? Do I get what women are about? Do I get what raising a healthy child is about? Do I get it at work with my associates? Now, I know I work hard, but do I get it? You know what the typical male answer is? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I get it. Because we answer that way because we're performance-based creatures. We really think that we can do it. We think that with the resources we presently have, that we can do it. And listen, guys, when you think that way, the paradox principle is not a part of your life. The wiser man would answer that question a different way. He wants to implement the paradox principle. So his answer to the question, do I get it, is the best answer. Write this down. The best answer is not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. Not nearly enough to succeed. I really don't get it fully and completely. I have a lot to learn about this. I want you to take a look at this picture, okay? That's me in October of 1987 carrying my new bride over the threshold of our condo in Arlington, Texas, okay? Now look at this one. We just got married. And my wife is looking at me. She's having all kinds of thoughts about how this guy is going to make her life wonderful, how he's going to take her places, how he's going to love her and protect her and care for her, how he's going to know what to do. And there I am looking at her. And you know what I'm probably thinking? I'm probably thinking, you know, I wonder how many channels they've got in the honeymoon suite. You know, the Cowboys are playing this weekend, man. I don't want to miss that. Do I get it? No, I don't have a clue, man. I do not have a clue. Now, I thought I knew what I was doing, okay, but there are men in their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s who still think they get it, even though they've been married for a long time or maybe even remarried many times. I want to read you one example. Donald Trump. Donald Trump was asked this question by Good Housekeeping magazine, all right? He said, the interviewer asked him, is there anything you wish that you had? Now, that's a good question to ask Donald Trump. Anything you wish that you had? His answer? He said, I wish I'd had a great marriage. One of my ex-wives said to me, you have to work at marriage. And I said, that's ridiculous. Man, I work all day long, well into the evening. I don't want to come home and work at marriage. A marriage, he said, has to be very easy. Donald doesn't get it. Donald, you're fired. He doesn't get it. There's a ship captain who was sailing in a dense fog, and he suddenly saw a light ahead of him. Fearing a collision, he sent a signal to the ship ahead. He said, turn your ship 10 degrees to the south. Back through the fog came a signal that said, no, you turn your ship 10 degrees to the north. That made the captain very angry. So he said, send this signal. I am an admiral. Turn your ship 10 degrees to the north. Back through the fog came the signal that said, sir, I am a seaman first class. Turn your ship 10 degrees to the south. Now, that just infuriated the captain. So he sent a signal that said, sir, I am a battleship. Turn your ship 10 degrees to the south. Back through the fog came the signal, sir, I am a lighthouse. The captain didn't get it. He thought he did, but he didn't. Now, in the paradox principle, one of the very first things every successful man thinks when he enters a new arena is this: I don't get it nearly enough to succeed. That's what he thinks. Which leads me to the next thing, vision. And vision asks this most important question: can I see it? Can I see it? And the best answer is this: not without humility. Not without humility. Gentlemen, humility is your eye opener. It opens your eyes. It's the most important attitude a man can have, because humility allows a man, regardless of his past assumptions, regardless of what has worked for him before, humility allows a man to open his eyes and see other alternatives that may work better for him now at work or at home. His child suddenly becomes a teenager and he realizes, I don't get it. And in humility, he opens his eyes for possible alternatives that can help him do better with his son or his daughter who's now turning his or her face away from him. And that leads me to the third thing, strategy. And it asks this question: do I know what to do? Do I know what to do? You know what the best answer is? Not without learning. Not without learning. Because only with learning something new, not just hearing about it, but actually learning it and taking the time to master it, will I find out what really needs to be done, which then leads to the next one, execution. Execution asks this question: will I get it done? Will I get it done? Now I know what to do, but will I get it done? Now this is the hardest part. Here is the best answer. The best answer is not without dying some to self. I can't get it done without dying some to self. Now that hurts a little bit, doesn't it? To execute anything noble, I have to execute me. That's why the cross is such a good symbol. To execute anything that is worthy of praise, that makes a real difference, that allows me to look into the mirror and go, you know what, I'm doing pretty good. Or look into that mirror and say, you know what, I'm stepping up at home. The only way you're going to be able to get there as an authentic man is a little part of you has to die in that moment to execute what you know to be true. And then when I do that and make the full circle from awareness to vision to strategy and then execute by executing me, that's when I discover the power of the paradox principle. And right in that moment, or right after that moment, in dying a little to myself, listen guys, in dying a little to myself to love my wife better, or raise my kids with wisdom, or engage my work with some new strategies that I've learned that really work for successful people, in that moment, I learned the power of the paradox principle. And I discovered that after I died a little, all of a sudden, I start living better. You know what you call that? To die a little to live better? You call it an absurd but possibly true statement. Die little, live better. Now, every successful man knows that. Every successful dad or employer, employee, or husband learns that when he dies a little, he experiences this miraculous resurrection of new life, but not just for his family or his business, but for himself. And it all turned on the paradox principle. You die little and you live a lot. Listen, refuse to die a little, you're going to die a whole lot. No matter how successful you are, it's going to come back to bite you in the rear. You will die a whole lot. And that's the most important thing you're going to hear me say this year. It's the key principle that unlocks home and unlocks work. And all through the year, I'm going to give you some mini projects. And they're not hard, okay? But next week, I'm going to give you the first one. And when you get it, you know what you're going to think? You're going to think, I'm going to have to die a little to do this. That's what you're going to think. Well, all right, don't do it. You don't have to. Just stay in the same rut you've always been. Keep doing what you've always done. You don't have to. But I challenge you to die a little, to implement it. Did you know that Jesus taught the paradox principle? He taught it in Luke chapter 9. He said it this way. He said, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever loses his life for my sake, whoever loses his life, do you see it? He is the one who will save it. Now look at that verse for a moment, okay? Do you see the four elements of the paradox principle? Let's go back to the cross on your diagram, okay? When it comes to awareness, do I get it? Jesus knew we didn't get it. That's why he said, deny yourself. Deny self. Don't trust your instincts every time, or your pride, or your assumptions. Deny yourself, because only then are you going to be able to hear an alternative. Secondly, when it comes to vision, can I see it? Well, Jesus knew that we couldn't see it without humility. That's why he said, take up your cross daily. Take up your cross daily. Look, that phrase, take up your cross daily, that is a first century metaphor for the posture of humility. When it comes to strategy, do I know what to do? Jesus knew that we didn't know what to do, that we needed new information to succeed in life. That's why he said, follow me. Follow me, I'll show you what to do. And when it comes to execution, will I get it done? Jesus knew that we'd never get it done unless we're willing to die some to self. And that's why he said, whoever loses his life, that's the man who will save it. Guys, I want you to know the paradox principle works. It works in spiritual life. It works in everyday life. It works in successfully engaging a woman. It works in successfully raising children. It works at work. It is the universal success principle of life. In the movie Gladiator, at the very beginning, Maximus is about to launch his legions against the barbarians. Y'all remember that opening scene? And in that scene, he moves up and down the ranks of his soldiers to encourage them. And the way he encourages them is by uttering to them a simple but sacred statement that he believes is the key to victory. He said it to them, and they would say it back to him. You remember what it was? He looks at one of his commanders, and he does this. You remember this? Strength and honor. Strength and honor. The commander turns back, and he says to him, strength and honor. And it goes all down the ranks. Because regardless of who the enemy is, if they were to have any chance, if they were to be Romans, they'd have to unleash this attack with the two key principles at the core of their success. And for them, it was strength and honor. This is what I want you to know, okay? Over the course of this year, I'm going to give you some new awarenesses, some new information, some new vision, some new strategies, and some special application projects. I believe they're going to help you. And as we begin this journey, all right, listen real closely to this. The key to victory, this is going to hurt, all right? The key to victory is not in awareness. It's not in strategies. It's not in information. It's not in the application projects. The key to victory is in a simple but sacred statement that is embedded in the core of life that every successful man discovers. Here it is. Die to live. That's it. Die to live. Now, the man on the front side of that, you know what he hears? Before experiencing the paradox principle, all he hears is this: die. That's all he hears. But the guy on the backside of it, you know what he hears? Live. Man, I'm living better at work, and I'm living better at home because I've learned how to die to live. We're going to have a great year together, guys. 16 sessions at the end of this year. You will be able to come back to that mirror, and you're going to be able to say, you know, mirror, mirror on the wall, am I doing any good at all? And I believe it's going to say back to you very clearly, you're doing better. You're stepping up. And how are you going to get there? Here it is. Do it with me. Die to live. Ready? Die to live. That's it.